The Minnesota Wild throttled the Anaheim Ducks 5-2 last night, thanks in part to one of the most dominant fourth-line performances you will ever see. Wait till you hear the numbers. Plus, with Quinn Hughes in the fold, the Minnesota Wild D-Corps ranks first in this key stat.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Foligno, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, I'm Seth Toupal. Welcome to Locked On Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Locked On Wild is your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you like and subscribe on all of your favorite audio platforms and on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will recap last night's absolute bludgeoning of the Anaheim Ducks, a game that was close for precisely one period, and then the Minnesota Wild made quick work of the Ducks after that. We'll take a look at what was an unbelievably dominant night for the fourth line, and we'll also take a look at Quinn Hughes bringing the Minnesota Wild D-Corps to the top of the NHL since he came on board in this key stat. Yes, of course, we're talking about points from the Minnesota Wild D-Corps. And we'll get you ready for tonight's game against the Los Angeles Kings as the Wild continue their 7-game road trip. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member, and host of the show since 2021. It was another just take him out behind the woodshed game for the Minnesota Wild last night against the Anaheim Ducks. And it's funny because this game was actually close. It was 1-0 after one period. And after that, the Wild just said enough's enough. And they absolutely took it to the Anaheim Ducks beyond that. They scored twice in the second, twice in the third. The Minnesota Wild in last night's game generated this is not a typo. Courtesy of MoneyPuck.com, the Minnesota Wild generated 4.87 expected goals against the Anaheim Ducks last night. Now, that is one of the highest marks of the season, but I do not believe it is the highest mark of the year for the Minnesota Wild. They, all told, had 61 unblocked shot attempts, 46 low danger, 9 medium danger, 6 high danger. They scored 2 low danger, 2 medium danger, and a high danger goal. And honestly, it was keyed in by the fourth line. It was keyed in by the Yakov Trenin, Nico Sturm, and Marcus Foligno combination. Listen to these numbers that combination put up in last night's game. In 7 minutes and 30 seconds of on-ice time together, they generated 20 shot attempts for and 4 shot attempts against. In the 7 minutes they were on the ice, 7.5 minutes they were on the ice, 20 shot attempts for and 7 shot attempts against. And you had Yakov Trenin scoring last night. You had Nico Sturm scoring last night. And this is another part of the puzzle, another piece of the pie as to why the Minnesota Wild have been able to, go on this run that they have been, is because they've got actual full-fledged NHL players on that fourth line. And getting contributions from that line, and in particular, what Marcus Foligno and Yakov Trenin can bring to the table, that is, we talk about, the change of pace, the spark that was so effective when Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime were here. It's a little different than what those two brought to the table. But now the spark becomes getting punched in the face. When you're out there going up against those two, you're going to get hit. And you're probably going to get hit hard. So the Wild have gotten back to this change of pace notion, this change of pace identity with their fourth line. You know you're going to get major push from the first and the second lines. And even with still having guys who are playing much better, like Vladimir Tarasenko, like Ryan Hartman, you've got those guys on that third line. They're going to bring kind of a little hit you hard as well, but they also have the ability to still put goals on the board. But when you're out there against that fourth line, they've got the brass knuckles. You better have your head on a swivel. And I think that is, we finally have gotten back to this point that we have a fourth line that is capable of providing something that can play off of what the other lines in the lineup are doing. And, you deploy that fourth line, you wear down the other line combinations a little bit. And keep in mind, they did this on the road. So Anaheim had last change. So they were able to dictate the matchups. And the fourth line still just absolutely went Ralphie in A Christmas Story, just pounding away on what was his name? Was it Flea? Just wailing away until they got physically pulled off and said, okay, that's enough. We get it. We understand what's going on. It was impressive. And, we knew, because we've seen it before, we knew that Trenin and Foligno could play well together. But, didn't really know, was Nico Sturm going to be able to slot in and fill in with that group? And I mean, they've been just fine. And they feasted in last night's game. They just 20. So it was 20 shot attempts in the 7 minutes. As far as actual shots on goal go, 7 shots on goal, 4, 0 shots against. So that equates out to 97% expected goals, 83.3% in the Corsi 4 percentage. So you're talking about all of the things that are going on the ice is being controlled by that fourth line. On the road against an Anaheim Ducks team that, yes, I know the bottom part of their lineup is a little sus. But again, the Ducks had last change. The Ducks had the ability to get the matchups that they wanted, and that combination still just did whatever they wanted against the Ducks while they were out on the ice. It was one of the most, I don't want to get too far, I don't want to go crazy, but honestly, it was the most impressive performance that line has had all season. And you do that, you bring that to the table, and that is what helps solidify that lineup depth. And you're going to have nights like last night where, the top of the lineup didn't do a ton, but they did enough. You got a power play goal, and, just not to drag too far off topic. I actually thought in last night's game, the power play looked good. I know they scored the one power play goal. They had a couple of other opportunities. I thought Lucas Dostal just made a bunch of really big saves on those power plays, but they were moving the puck around. They were doing a really good job of, getting shots from different locations. So I just as you can tell, pretty taken aback by what we saw from the fourth line in last night's game. And just overall for the team, after that first period, it seemed like the Wild just they got to the point where they were like, all right, we're tired of toying with these guys. Let's just go take care of business and win the dang game. And they did, but big key to that was what we saw from the fourth line, and they feasted. They feasted on the Ducks. I don't think the Ducks thought that was particularly fun, but sometimes that's how it plays out. The Minnesota Wild, since Quinn Hughes came in, they're number one in the league as far as defensemen go in a pretty big stat. We'll tell you how the points have started to roll in from the blue line as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild on the way after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night, before games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour brings something new every time. Boosts, bonuses, and some surprises tucked in as well. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. And it's perfect timing right before the games, right before the weekend starts. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. If you're looking for a little more, a little bonus, Locked On Wild, a little extra, then the all-access tier of Locked On is just the thing for you. All access allows you an opportunity to chat with me one-on-one texting, plus additional all-access exclusive episodes of Locked On Wild. We're turning this into Locked On State of Hockey by bringing you my thoughts on the Iowa Wild, PWHL. We'll mix in some college and high school hockey as well. State of Hockey. We're locking it all down here with the all-access tier. You can also check out the Everydayer Club, which gets you ad-free Locked On Wild, plus an opportunity to join the Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server with all of your favorite teams housed in one spot. Check the show notes as we've got more information on both Locked On All Access and the Everydayer Club, bringing you more right here on Locked On Wild. So the Minnesota Wild, ever since Quinn Hughes came into the fold, they are number one in the league as far as defenseman points go. And that is because Quinn Hughes himself is second in the NHL with 11 points in the last 10 games. Lane Hudson has 14 points in the last 9 games, which is crazy. But, look at the contributions that the Wild are getting from the rest of the blue line in that same span. Here are the numbers for the top 4 Wild defensemen in the last 10 games. Quinn Hughes, as we mentioned, he's got a goal, 10 assists. He's a +7 in the last 10 games. Brock Faber is a +8. He has 2 goals, 6 total points in the last 10 games. Jared Spurgeon's got 2 goals, 4 total points. He is a +7 in the last 10 games. And Jonas Brodin, in that same span, he's played 7 games. He is a +5. He's got 4 points in the 7 games. So you hear The Wild are number one in D points since Quinn Hughes came in. And it's like, well, duh, because Quinn Hughes himself is the one that is leading the charge. And yes, that is certainly part of it. But the Minnesota Wild now have the guy that can be the lead dog as far as defensemen go. And everybody else just slots in to a more normal spot for them. Brock Faber doesn't have to be lead fiddle. He's got Quinn Hughes as his D partner. Brock Faber has also been pretty effective with Quinn Hughes as his D pairing partner. Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin have been great since that pairing has come together over the last 10 games. In fact, in the game last night against the Ducks, the D pairings were all at least even as far as shots on goal and attempts for and against. The only pair that had a negative goal differential and a negative attempts differential was the Middleton Bogosian pairing. And that was just, that was, otherwise they played to a dead even heat. Other than that, the entirety of the night. Hughes and Faber had a 9-6 shots on goal for and against ratio in last night's game. Brodin and Spurgeon, it was an even 7-7. But the ability to step into the play, the ability to jump up on offense, and the ability to have somebody who can still stay back, can still make sure, can keep an eye on the back end of the play, that's more Brock Faber's game anyway. He's perfectly capable of stepping into the play, but he can play his more natural position by having Quinn Hughes, who is just automatically involved in the play. And we saw it last night with the 4 assists that Quinn Hughes had. He has a pretty good eye of what's going on at the top of the blue line. He's a pretty good idea of what is going on in the rest of the play. And so he just sends it downhill. And in one case, he had the shot that he sent towards the net that hit off of Daniil Yurov's skate. So sometimes better to be lucky than good. But we have seen some just outrageous feeds from Quinn Hughes since he got to Minnesota. And the Wild haven't had that type of a defenseman for quite some time. Maybe ever. That can direct traffic from the top. They've had some guys that are good at that, but Quinn Hughes is best of the best at that. And it just allows your offense to flow more freely because you've got a lot of guys whose best tendencies are to go to the net and to be in that net front area and to feast on rebounds. Guess what? Lucas Dostal last night spoke Z, hit it right on the head. Did he see one puck last night? Like, as far as rebounds went, he was serving them up all night long. And it seemed like he had some real trouble tracking the puck throughout the course of the game. And so having a general at the top like Quinn Hughes, who can rain those shots down from up high into the waiting arms of the players like Yakov Trenin, into the waiting arms of players like Daniil Yurov, who are just waiting at the goal mouth for rebounds and deflections. It just plays perfectly into the style that this Minnesota Wild team wants to play. And it's no coincidence that since Quinn Hughes came to Minnesota, the Minnesota Wild are 7-1-2. They are averaging 4.1 goals per game in that span. The defense is still the defense is still good. 2.4 goals allowed per game in that span. But look at the power play numbers. The Wild power play since Quinn Hughes came on board is at 25.9%. And that's because Quinn Hughes has vision, playmaking ability, and just an idea of where the puck is going that matches what Kirill Kaprizov can do. And before that, the Wilds, they have never had somebody that is this good at just putting the puck where it needs to be in order to make plays. So the Quinn Hughes agenda is live and well. Again, pre-Quinn Hughes, defensive points. This was courtesy of the broadcast last night. Pre-Quinn Hughes, the Minnesota Wild were 29th in the league as far as points from their defensemen go. Since Quinn Hughes has come on board, the Minnesota Wild are number 1 in the league. Having a defense that can jump in and get involved in the play is what really sets the offense apart. It's what brings that balance. And the Wilds in that span as well, most goals in the league in the last 10 games at 41. Most goals in the league. They've scored more goals in that span than Dallas has. They've scored more goals in that game in that span than Colorado has. Now, these teams have played fewer games, but they have scored more goals in the league than anyone since Quinn Hughes came on board. That's the impact right there. That's where the impact comes in. That is why the Minnesota Wild went out and got Quinn Hughes. Elevate the blue line to become a key contributing piece to what the offense is doing. Now, it's going to be interesting tonight because the Los Angeles Kings are a team that's had the Minnesota Wild's number the last few seasons. And so we'll get you set for tonight's matchup against the LA Kings, a team that the Wilds play the next 2 games, and a team that has not been friendly to them over the last couple of years. We'll take a look at the matchup and where the Kings stand right now in the standings. That is coming up on today's episode of Locked On Wild right after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe on all of your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We have you covered every Monday through Friday, and now that we're in the big push to try to lock down a playoff spot, lock down one of those division spots, we're going to be keeping you covered every step of the way. Standings update before we take a look at the Kings game. The Minnesota Wilds, with 1 more game played than the Dallas Stars, are in a dead even as far as points go. The Stars have lost 4 games in a row. Dallas is in action tonight, or are they? I thought they were. Must not be. I thought the Dallas Stars played today, but evidently they've got a little bit more of an extended break, which means that they will be definitely on the schedule tomorrow. Stars have the Montreal Canadiens in a 1 p.m. tilt for tomorrow's game. So a chance to watch the Stars and see if they can draw even. Now, if the Minnesota Wild win tonight or get a point, they will pull into second place in the Central Division. So there is a lot on the line as far as tonight's game goes. We will see if the Wild can get it done here against the Kings, a team that has had Minnesota's number over the last couple of years. Last year, the Kings won the season series 2-1, which included a 5-1 win in the first matchup of the year. And you know, the games were close for a while, and the Kings pulled away in both cases. The first 2 games, 5-1 and 4-1. In last year's series, the Wild won the final game of the series between the two, 3-1. Back to 2023-2024, the Los Angeles Kings won the first meeting of the year between the two teams 7-3. That was when everything started off in just absolute mess fashion that year. The Wilds then played the Kings on the 20th of March. They lost that game 6-0 before winning the final game of the series on April 15th, 3-1. So the Wild are 2-4 against the Kings over the last few seasons. And you look at where this Los Angeles Kings team is at right now. They are 16, 14, and 9. Everydayers know that means that they are 16 and 23. And they don't score. They don't score goals. As far as the Western Conference goes, the Los Angeles Kings have the fewest goals in the entire conference and the fewest goals in the entire league at 102. Now, they have done well as far as limiting opponents in goals against. They are second in the Western Conference and tied for second in the entirety of the NHL. They've allowed just 107 goals on the season through 39 games. But what once was an impenetrable fortress, last year they were unbeatable on home ice. The Kings last year were 31-6-4 at home. This year, they have had trouble winning games at home. They're 5-9-4, or as I like to say, 5-13 in the on the friendly confines of home. As far as the standings go, let's just say since December 1st for the Los Angeles Kings, they come in 4-8-2 in that span. They're not scoring, but they're not giving a ton up. They've scored 34 goals, given up 37. Power plays at 18.6%. Their penalty kill 72.5% since the calendar flipped to December 1st. If we pile that up back even further, back to November 1st, the Minnesota Wild, by the way, 22-4-4 since November 1st. Just bonkers numbers. They're literally 1 point behind the Colorado Avalanche, but the Avs have played 3 fewer games. They've made 5 points up since November 1st on the Dallas Stars. The Los Angeles Kings in that span, they are 11-11-5, 66 goals in 27 games, 65 goals against in that span. So this game is going to be more defense-oriented. It's going to be very tight. Not going to be much as far as windows go to score. It comes down again to special teams. And it comes down to not letting the two guys that can beat you do it. There are 3 players that have double-digit goals for this Kings team so far. Adrian Kempe has 13 goals. Kevin Fiala has 14. And Alex Laferriere has 10. That's it. So there has not been a ton of offense this year. Trevor Moore will not be playing, so that takes care of some size on the back end. But defensively, it's a big D-core. The Wild have struggled against teams with big D-cores in the past. You've got Mikey Anderson, who's 6 foot. Cody Cece's 6'3". Brant Clark is 6'2". Drew Doughty, 6'1". Brian Dumoulin, 6'4". Joel Edmondson, 6'5". And Jacob Moverar is 6'3". I know I slaughtered that. So it's a big D-core. But we saw it recently with the Minnesota Wild against Vegas. Just tire them out. Just skate around them. The Wild have now a measure of skating. It's amazing the transformation this team has made over the last couple of seasons to being just insanely slow, insanely tired, insanely old, to now they can actually skate. They can skate around you. They can get some nice puck possession numbers. They've got to do that tonight. And as far as the goaltending goes, we don't know who is going to be in net for the Kings. It sounds like Darcy Kemper, and he's had a great season. 2.27 goals against average, a .913 save percentage in the games that he has started this year. And for Kemper, his recent games, he's coming off of a game against Tampa Bay in which he allowed 4 goals. He came in for some mop-up duty. Actually, he left injured, against Dallas on December 15th. And his first game back was against Tampa Bay on New Year's Day. So getting him back into the fold, but his numbers in December, he allowed 8 total goals in 6 starts, a 1.54 goals against average, a 946 save percentage, and a shutout in that span. So you're going to have to earn it. It is not going to be given to you, much like we talked about with the Anaheim Ducks. The Wild are not going to be given anything in tonight's game. So good general strategy to try to manufacture some goals when there's not a lot of room to operate. It's just go right to the net. Just go to the net, pepper away, and get your goals that way. It should be a fun matchup. This should be, based on how the standings should be games that the Wild are able to get their points in. You got 2 games coming up against the Kings. You should win at least one of those. Points in 3 out of the 4 points would be great. I'll take 1 out of 2. It's tough to win on the road. I'll take 1 out of 2 against the Kings. I'd like that to be tonight. Honestly, though, this Wild team, it feels like is one that certainly could win both. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a tough one tonight. It's going to be a physical game. That's how the Kings operate. They are struggling, though. So just go take care of your business. Don't worry about the Kings. Just leave them in the dust and come away with another victory here tonight. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or any of the other audio platforms, make sure to leave us a review. If you like the show, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. We'll give you a shout out in a future episode of the show. We love the feedback, love the interaction with listeners, and let's just keep it rolling here in 2026 as we watch the Wild try to elevate themselves to new heights. Make sure, if you have not already, to tell a friend. Let them know that Locked On Wild will keep you up to date all throughout the season. We've got new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.